In this video, we'll discuss some of the resources you can use to learn more about AuthPoint and for troubleshooting. We'll look at the online help documentation, audit logs, alerts, and monitoring information in WatchGuard Cloud. We'll also cover some of the other places that you might find useful information, such as the AuthPoint Gateway. If you are trying to troubleshoot a specific area in AuthPoint, we recommend that you also watch our other videos for more information. Now, let's get started. Here we can see the dashboard page in WatchGuard Cloud. At the top right of the screen is the Help icon. When we click this icon, the Help documentation opens in a new tab. WatchGuard Cloud always takes you to the relevant help for the current page. The mobile app also has some help resources for the users. If we navigate to the options in the settings menu at the top, we can see Tips and Help. Tips will contain information about using the mobile app, and Help will take us to the WatchGuard Help Center for the mobile app. To troubleshoot most authentication issues, we recommend starting by looking at the audit logs. We can see audit logs here under Administration, then Audit Logs. The audit logs show events related to automated actions, configuration changes, and user logins. Since this shows us the result of authentication attempts, it's a good place to start looking when there's a problem. At the top of the page, we can see the time frame for the list of audit logs, the CSV link to export the list, and the search bar. You can also sort the columns to organize the list. In this example, the time frame has been set to display audit logs for the last month, in this case June 2020, and we can see administrative actions in the list here. Now I'll run a search for authorized so that the list only includes logs for successful authentications. We can see some audit logs for successful attempts here, and if we select a log message, we can see more details. This includes the AuthPoint resource that was accessed, the IP address of the request, and the token that was used to authenticate. If push authentication was used, you can also see the timeline of the push as well. Now let's search for unauthorized to filter the list and show audit logs for authentication attempts that failed. Just like before, we can select a log message to see more details. For authentication attempts that are not authorized, you can see a reason and the relevant error code. In this example, we can see that the push was denied. The audit logs are a great place to start troubleshooting a problem, but they don't have information for authentications if AuthPoint doesn't receive the request. This can happen if the login fails earlier in the process. For example, when attempting to send radius packets through the AuthPoint gateway, if the gateway doesn't accept the request, then the audit logs will not record anything. In this case, we would need to review the gateway logs instead to help us understand the problem further. The gateway logs are stored on the C drive in the Hidden Program Data folder. Navigate to WatchGuard, then AuthPoint, then Logs, and you'll find the current log files for each of the 4 services the gateway operates. You'll also find backups from previous days. We'll cover the contents of the gateway log files in the AuthPoint Gateway video. For now, it's enough to know when to check these logs and where to find them. Depending on which resource you are attempting to integrate with or troubleshoot, you may also find useful logs in firewalls, servers, or other locations. You might want to be notified when serious events happen, such as a gateway that becomes unavailable, an AuthPoint license becomes over-allocated, or perhaps even when a user denies a push notification. By default, WatchGuard Cloud generates alerts for important events, and we can add notification rules to generate additional alerts. To review the alerts for our account, we can navigate to Administration, then Notifications. In the list of alerts, we see any alerts that have been generated in the selected time frame. If we navigate to the Rules page, we can see the active rules that are generating these alerts. We can add rules to generate alerts for other events, or delete them to disable rules. We can generate email notifications as well by selecting any rule and editing the delivery method. To monitor how AuthPoint is being used, we can navigate to Monitor, then AuthPoint, and view AuthPoint reports. On the summary page, we see the time frame for our reports at the top, as well as an overview of the data for each report. I've chosen a custom time frame to display reports over a long time period, but you can choose any time frame that is relevant to you. We can click on a tile to see more detail or choose the report on the left. The user activity report shows which users have been active during the selected time frame. We can switch the view to see which users have not logged in at all. The authentication report shows the successful and failed authentication attempts for each user that logged in during the selected time frame. In the list below, we can select a user to see more details about each successful authentication attempt, or we can switch the view to see information about unsuccessful logins. The resource activity report shows which resources have been used during the time frame and a count of the successful and failed authentication attempts. Just like before, in the list below, we can select a resource to see which users have successfully logged in. If we switch the view, we can see which users were not able to log in. The denied push notifications report shows any denied push requests during the time frame. To show up on this report, the user must deny the push notification on their phone. It can't just time out. Below the report, we can select a user to see the details of their denied push notification. The activation activity report simply lists the users that have a pending token they have not yet activated. Because the token activation email is only valid for 7 days, you might need to resend the activation email to these users. Finally, the sync activity report tracks the LDAP syncs that run and records any changes during the time frame here. You can expand the entries to see more information about what changed. All of the information we reviewed in the audit logs, alerts, and reports are stored in WatchGuard Cloud for at least 1 year. So that should do it for AuthPoint Help. In this video, we covered how to find the online help documentation, the audit logs, alerts, and reports in WatchGuard Cloud, as well as the gateway logs.